Coming up on today's edition of the Cowboys Report, as promised, we're going to break down the Sam Williams injury news and look at the top replacements the Cowboys could find for him. That's internal options, available free agents, and even some trade candidates as well. Before we get into that, over the weekend, we have beaten our subscriber number from last July, already about 80 ahead. Let's continue to blow that number out of the water. We're going to have more Cowboys camp and, of course, preseason coverage for you. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button right now. Now, if you also hadn't already heard, Sam Williams, unfortunately, out for the season. He suffered a torn MCL and a torn ACL at practice on Sunday. His season is now over. It is a noteworthy loss for the Dallas Cowboys. They don't have great depth along the defensive end room. We'll get to that more in depth in a moment. And they were banking on a breakout season for Sam Williams. Dorrance Armstrong leaves. Dante Fowler leaves. That was fine because you were going to hope that Sam Williams, in year 3 under new DC Mike Zimmer, had a big step forward. And now there's no opportunity to have that happen. And now he becomes still a giant question mark for 2025 when he's going to be in the final year of his deal, when he has not played in 2024. And where I thought he was better in 2022 and took a bit of a step back. Yes, his sacks were higher and his tackles were. The TFLs went in the wrong direction. The pressure rate was lower as well. The penalties had gone up. I was excited to see what Sam Williams could do. I thought he was a breakout candidate and kind of in a make-or-break year. And now we kind of just have him in a complete uncertainty situation, which is also where this defensive end room is. Micah Parsons is going to do a lot of different things. He'll get some, I think it's going to be more like 3-4 outside linebacker looks, kind of like Sam linebacker looks, probably behind Tank Lawrence on some reps too, by the way. Lawrence is going to be a key part. You're going to bank even more now on Marshawn Kneeland. Now, what's noteworthy is Kneeland had been getting rep at defensive tackle as well in some situational packages there. Marshawn Kneeland, Chauncey, Golston, Junior Fehoko can all play defensive tackle if they need to. And probably at least one or two of those guys is going to mostly be a full-time defensive tackle, which is significant and noteworthy to keep in mind. And then, so if those guys aren't full-time DEs, I think Kneeland's probably going to play more defensive end full-time. Now we'll go more in depth on him in a moment. It's Tyrus Sweet, Byron Vaughns, who kind of fit, edge, outside linebacker, hybrid types, and Durrell Johnson. And you're not going to play Micah or Tank Lawrence in the preseason. Shoot, you need bodies right now even. So I think the Cowboys will add another defensive end. I'd be pretty shocked and concerned if we're fine. We don't need that. So will the Cowboys sign another DE? 1 for yes, 0 for no. It is the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. I think the first guy you turn to is your second-round pick out of Western Michigan, Marshawn Kneeland. I think at his best is a potential down-the-line Tank Lawrence replacement. I think is now primed to get even more opportunities on base downs. I would not be surprised if you saw packages early on this year where it's Tank Lawrence and Marshawn Kneeland at defensive end on the outside, and Micah Parsons kind of as almost a Sam linebacker where maybe he rotates down or maybe he's lined up over the A-gap and you kind of use him as your chess piece on defense and still have 2 base defensive tackles, 2 base defensive ends. And Kneeland, I think, is primed for a bigger role than maybe the Cowboys were planning on giving him in year 1. I'm also curious what happens now with Viliami Fehoko. He'd been getting some run at defensive tackle because you're so just non-existent depth at defensive tackle. You were going to play Golston, play Fehoko. You'd been giving Kneeland reps in there as well. Well, now at least one of them has to play more defensive end, and I don't know where Fehoko ends up playing. So maybe we'll see more once we get deeper into training camp practice, once the pads come on, which is really the first time we get to really look at these trench players. It's pads. There's not, without pads, it's only so much you can really glean from that there. Other guys to watch, watch Tyrus Sweet, Byron Vaughns, Durrell Johnson are not that big. They have played some more edge rusher, outside linebacker type of stuff for the Cowboys in the past. I mean, they were playing Wheat at off-ball linebacker at times last year, and I just think that's a good spot for him. So all of a sudden, you're a little bit thin of just having your normal defensive ends. So I do think somebody else has to come into this room to round things out. We will look at some notable free agent targets, one of whom is already being linked to Dallas. But first, today's show is made possible by Rocket Money. The answer of the question of how much do you think you're paying for subscriptions It's probably more than you think. Over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Thanks to Rocket Money, you can no longer waste money on the ones you forgot about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I love how the dashboard, by the way, can show you this month's spending compared to last month's spending, so I can clearly see any spending habits you've got, and you can create a custom budget to help keep track of your spending and make sure, again, you're not wasting money on things you don't need or want. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. That's rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. The link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. But one more time for you, rocketmoney.com/Cowboys. Let's talk free agent options, and then two names stand out to me. Because the main thing I'm looking for is I got Tank Lawrence to be a run stopper. Nealon can stop the run. I'd like to find someone in the Dante Fowler veteran mold. That's what I'm looking for, which I was maybe already open to adding anyway. First up is Carl Lawson. Now, as part of a very deep Jets defensive end and pass rushing room last year, Lawson didn't play much. He only played 6 games, didn't record a sack. The 2 years he's played, 2020 with Cincinnati, 2022 with the Jets, 5.5 sacks, 7 sacks. When he has been available, he's been fairly productive. He's got a pretty solid set of pass rush moves. He kind of maximizes his athletic ability, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, right? This is a player we've spent a lot of time talking about, someone that I have had interest in years ago. I still do. Also, not long after the Sam Williams news, Lawson just so happened to tweet out the star emoji. Coincidence? I think not. So name a pass rusher who you want to sign. Drop that player name for me in the comments of today's show. The other big name, I think there's a clear-cut top 2 options here, is Yannick Ngakoue. And I made the comment of, about him previously. You don't want him being a full-time run stopper, but as a situational pass rusher, he can fit check that box pretty well. That is what I am searching for here. He's kind of become a journeyman. He's had 5 teams in 4 years. His next team, unless it's a team he went back to, would be 6 in 5 years. But if I can get if I can get 5 sacks from him, more than what Sam Williams got last year, right? He would fill a similar role as Carl Lawson, situational pass rusher. And by the way, he did briefly play under Mike Zimmer. Don't think that one should necessarily be overlooked either. I think Lawson and Ngakoue are your 2 clear-cut top options of the available free agents. Who would you rather sign? CL for Carl Lawson, YN for Yannick Ngakoue. Rasheem Green is a little bit of a bigger player and kind of fits more of that. Play some DT, can play some defensive end stuff for you. He has also been on the journeyman career path. His numbers have dropped each of the past few seasons. He was in Seattle, he was in Houston, he was in Chicago. I think there is a little bit better run stopping here for Rasheem Green than some of the other players that are out there. He's listed like 6'4", 280. That's pretty good size relative to some of the other options we'll have and will discuss. Markus Golden is next up here. He has been kind of a flash-in-the-pan pass rusher at times. Had the 11-sack season in Arizona in 2021 and has had 6.5 since then. I think he can be your number 3 or number 4 pass rusher. And look, it's almost August. The available options, folks, are not that great. That's the reality we have to live in here because there's just not a ton of dynamite options available. The constant veteran option is Justin Houston. And Houston was kind of on a run where he would sign in August or July, and he'd put up like 5 to 10 sacks. That came screeching down to a halt in the 2023 campaign. He simply did not have the production bouncing around with Carolina and Miami that I think people were hoping for. So Houston stands out as a veteran name, but maybe not the sexiest one. Some other veteran free agents who I don't know how much they have left in the tank across the board here. Frank Clark. Marquis Haynes is younger but has not been super productive. Shaq Lawson. Melvin Ingram. Charles Harris had a good year 2 years ago and then just kind of flamed out after that. Some notable UFL options. Remember, the Cowboys worked out these first 3 names: Jonathan Garvin, Wyatt Ray, Derek Roberson. Ray and Roberson also got workouts for Carolina, by the way. Plus some other veteran UFL names: Chris Odom, who had been really good 2 years ago, then got hurt and wasn't the same with the Browns. Kenny Willekes is with the Stallions. He was a Mike Zimmer draft pick, by the way, so do not forget about that one. Some UFL Cowboys legends who are unsigned: Breeland Speaks, Rondell Carter, Mika Tafua. Again, these guys fill the roster spot. I think it's going to impact your roster. I'll mention Taco Charlton. I think that'd be a terrible idea. So how should the Dallas Cowboys look to replace Sam Williams? T for trade. F for you want to sign a free agent. I for an internal, just don't sign anybody. Just go with the guys you got on your roster already. We'll talk trade candidates here in a second, but let me know in the comments. We'll look at some cheaper options because you're not going to go out and trade for like a Khalil Mack or something, you know? Cameron Thomas is first up here, the former 3rd-round pick out of San Diego. So I think the Cowboys had some interest there. Arizona drafted him, kind of fallen out of favor in Arizona. I've got extra late day 3 picks. I could potentially flip one of those. Joseph Osai has not contributed the way I thought he was going to for the Bengals coming out of Texas. I think there is still some untapped potential. Again, a former 3rd-round pick. Could also just bring home Isaiah Land. Land was, I thought he was going to make the roster last year. Ended up not. Gets waived. Colts claim him off of waivers. They spent a 1st-round pick, bring back most of their guys. Maybe Land could even be a reunion come roster cut-down time. Another, I believe this is a 3rd-round pick too, Patrick Jones, the 2nd from the Minnesota Vikings. Again, much like Osai and Thomas, the contributions have not been there on the field statistically, but he was a Mike Zimmer draft pick. And he's kind of one of the few edge rushers who are still, I think, somewhat available from that Mike Zimmer regime. That would make sense. Finally, I was kidding when I put Randy Gregory on social media. In fact, I literally said not serious in the tweet. It's not going to happen. Background here is Randy Gregory signed with the Bucs and didn't show up for anything. The answer is no. Whatever Randy's dealing with, it is not time for a reunion. He actually played well for the Niners down the stretch. Whatever happened this offseason, it is a firm no.